It's
It
the
was so
same as the
awesome. I
normal,
forgot.
same as the normal intro. It just doesn't have the topics that we're going to discuss.
Ah. All right. Do we have anyone? Actually, before we start, I guess I should open up the chitter chatter.
Yes.
If you
That's
must.
that's the technical terms.
The
There's somebody in
chat.
there.
Oh, it just started. I'm in
What?
there. I'm in there.
Well, you're not typing. Shut up.
Oh, and I'm still a moderator too.
Yeah, you guys should just be moderators moving forward. I shouldn't have to worry about it. How do you know you're a moderator?
Because it told me that there's new moderator tools, and I have a little wrench next to my name.
Where are you?
I don't
where
have
do you even
that.
see that?
In the pop-out chat?
Yeah, I don't see that
Pop-up
either.
chat? What the hell, man? Yeah, I don't see that.
Nope, me either.
So it sounds like you're the moderator, Thomas.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Oh, and there's a difference between top chat and live chat.
Yeah, that's the new
Oh.
thing. Top chat is just them like pre-filtering, supposedly some of the bots and stuff out.
Oh. Well, that's convenient because we have so many bots that interrupt us. Actually, we did last week, didn't we? Or
Yeah.
2 weeks
Yeah.
ago.
All right, let me
All
actually.
right.
I need to go pee before we start.
Killing me. Well, gives me a chance to. Boop.
Roxanne. Did not hear you or shake hands at all.
We got that on mic?
Yeah.
Ready to go. Welcome to PHP Ugly episode 95. I'm John Congdon. With me, as always, is Eric Van Johnson. Eric.
Hello. Hey.
And Tom Rideout. What's going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Woo. Hey, John.
Another episode. 2 weeks since we've recorded last. Seems like forever ago.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom.
Yes, we took a break.
Hey, John.
What?
How's your butt?
We're gonna go right for that, huh?
I don't think you could bring it up without me not bringing it up.
I could try. So
you could have just said I had a doctor's appointment and left it at that.
I did.
I could have specific.
Well, granted, it's not No Shave November, but men's health is still very important. So the reason we did not record last week, Eric was back in Arizona with horrible internet access, and I had a colonoscopy, which is probably TMI for most people, but it's important. And I have to have it early in my life because my mom had colon cancer some 20 years ago or whatever, and she's fine. She made it through it, but doctors are always harping on me, you have to go have one. So I had one probably 10 to 15 years ago, and they still keep telling me you have to have one every 5 years. So finally I'm getting back in there and getting that going. The funny thing is, you Tom today in Slack were trying to get my attention and trying to figure out if I was going to make it tonight, and made a comment about it. Like if I, I meant to have it up and ready to go for this because
Anything
I thought it
new
was
up your
funny.
butt this week?
Right. So I took a screenshot of that and shared that with somebody else. Like, this is my friends in quote.
We're friends.
My
Hey.
friends and come on, you asked me if I had anything new up my butt.
Yeah. Who would ask that besides a friend?
It was funny. So anyway, it's no big deal. Go get checked. I had a completely different experience this time than last time. The preparation sucks. Last time I swear I remember waking up in the middle and seeing the monitor and thinking it was the coolest thing ever. This time I went in there and they told me they started the drip, told me to roll onto my side, and then all I remember is waking up. It was so nice. Nice and easy.
And then after the dentist, he went to the doctor for the colonoscopy.
What are you
So-
talking
so
about, weirdo?
Here's a good reason why John and I can't be in any sort of relationship that we share a living arrangement. John had one of the best ideas in the world, and because he actually lives with a sane and sensible woman, she talked him out of it. But I would have totally dove in there and had done exactly what he suggested.
I wanted her to write on my ass cheeks before going, like, remember, Doc, you chose this profession. Be gentle.
I mean, how awesome would that have been?
I would have
She
gone
went
with
with it.
I would have gone with do not amputate.
But I mean, that doesn't really work.
I could use some weight off my butt cheeks though.
All right, can we move on? Maybe talk PHP, not.
You don't want us to keep talking about your ass, John?
Well, I have to talk about my new hobby
What's your
because
new hobby?
I feel like I've
Are you-
gone completely insane.
Are we done with John being the butt of the joke?
We were full circle.
Now we
there.
are again.
Oh God! What, Thomas? Move on.
I was playing a video game recently called Subnautica, and a lot of the game it's a survival game. A lot of the game is resource management and gathering stuff and just sort of keeping things running and clean. And I beat that game and didn't have anything else that was sort of along the same lines. So I've been cleaning the house like an insane person for the last week. And my new hobby is just cleaning the house.
That is a weird hobby to have.
It's really weird, especially for me. If you've ever met me, that's
Why is there a mess
unusual.
on the dresser behind you then?
That's all my wife's stuff that I don't touch. And it's not a mess. She would be very upset to hear that.
Well, I can see like one tiny little corner and I see stuff up there. So to me, that. Anyway, go ahead.
I can see your office behind you.
I never said my office. I was on a like cleaning my office kick. Although it is way cleaner now than it was last time we talked.
There's another side to it too, is that one day I was well, I have to preface this. When I got married, my wife had 3 7-year-olds, or 2 7-year-olds and an 8-year-old. And for the longest time, she's been a stay-at-home mom. So she's just done the cleaning and it's just been done. But recently she started working, and I looked around the house the other day while drinking and watching TV and etc. and thought to myself, why is the house so dirty? Why isn't she cleaning it up? And then I realized that she has a job now and it's a shared responsibility to keep things clean. And I hadn't done that for the entire time that she was working.
I was about to say, you realize that that's not a new revelation, right? That's always been the case. You just chose not to do your part.
Yeah. No, I realized that the next day when I had sobered up a little and realized how stupid a sentiment that was, that I had to.
Now, wait. Did you say to her, "Hey, why isn't the house clean?" while you were drunk, and then sobered up the next day?
No, I am still alive actually. I recounted this story to her after having scrubbed the entire house down from top to bottom, so that it was more of a funny ha-ha story and less of an I'm gonna kill you story.
That's probably a smart move right there. Every once in a while. Eric, what have you been up to?
Not a lot. Doing some
turned into a
coding
car.
on Greenfield app. Turned into a car.
Yeah, you
What?
made a bunch of car sounds.
Oh.
Never mind. Just ignore me. Keep going. Greenfield app. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going.
Note to
It's going
self,
well.
hire a real comedian for the show.
But yeah, ended up having to go back out to Arizona. I mean, I knew I was heading back out to Arizona about the week before, so it was no surprise. But went back out there. Things are kind of keeping on pace out there. Yeah, not a whole lot going on. I think one of the bigger news things I have. So, call for papers for Wave PHP is insane. I can't even begin
insane.
Yeah, I can't even begin to express to you guys how thrilled I am with how the people who are contributing, the talks that are being contributed. I was really stressed that we were going to have enough speakers for the conference itself, and I'm no longer stressed about that. And I already know that there's a good. I know of 3 or 4 speakers who I've spoken to over Twitter with, or through Telegram or something, that say, "Hey, I haven't submitted my paper yet. I'm going to submit." And these are people that I've been following. I've had on a list that I've wanted to reach out to them and ask them to submit. So, it's like to hear that we're still on their radar and they're still looking to submit. Man, it's just so refreshing to see. I mean, not refreshing, just so relieving. I guess I'm relieved to see it.
Weight off.
Yeah, a little bit. We do have some challenges ahead of us. There's a lot of talks coming from outside the U.S. borders, and there's some coming. Some of the speakers are very notable speakers in the community. So I'm like, man, I really, really want to get this person here. So how we're going to handle that, John and I haven't really talked through, but I'm hoping that, if we have some sort of travel allowance, maybe we can't cover the whole travel to San Diego from whatever European or Middle East country they're coming from. Hopefully just giving them a travel allowance will be enough to entice them to come out here. Because there's just so many good talks, so many good presenters. I'm like, I just want to take like one talk from everybody that's submitted so far, because I'm so thrilled.
We have, the schedule's not in stone yet, but we're thinking 22 sessions plus 2 to 4 like training sessions. So let's say 26 total. We have over 100 submissions so far, which is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't even given my submission yet.
Yeah, there's like,
make our job difficult, please.
Like I said, yeah, there's a few people like that, and I'm just thrilled. I'm really thrilled. So, but to prepare for this, I am a learner by doer. I learn things a lot better by doing it. And so I was telling John, I'm like, I thought about it too late, but I'm like, man, Sunshine PHP. I said we should have offered to go out there, buy a ticket, not ask for a free ride or anything, but buy a ticket, go out there, if they would allow us to work it with them, so that we could get some insight on how to handle the conference. We did take some time and speak to the organizer of Sunshine, Adam Culp. He was fantastic. He was such a huge help to us. We bent his ear for a long time. He was very patient with us and talked to us. But I'd come up with the idea too late, But John was like, yeah, that was actually a really good idea. We should have done that. So I kind of looked on the schedule. I'm like, all right, what's the next community conference that's coming up? And it was, the one that like stood out to me was a Longhorn one, the one in Texas. So I reached out to their organizers and said, hey, if I come out to Texas, can I work the conference with you? Because I'm really hoping that I make mistakes and screw up your conference before I do mine. So they seemed on board with most of that plan, and so so as a result, John and I we're gonna make our travel arrangements probably tomorrow, but we're gonna head out to Lone Star and help those guys out with that conference. Which this is their first year. Previously, it'd been up in Dallas or something. At Longhorn was the Texas Community PHP conference. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be going out there. I'm excited to go to Austin. I'm excited to try to sabotage their conference so nobody ever wants to go back to it, and make Wave PHP a better conference as a result.
Of course, he kids. We want to make them all great.
Yes. Of course I kid. I joke. I
keyed.
So yeah, that's pretty much all. We haven't had a show since the whole SpaceX thing, have we?
I don't think so.
All right, how crazy cool is Elon Musk is one bad experience from being a supervillain. This guy has got all the tools that he needs to be like a comic book supervillain, and he's just there. He's one bad experience from that. I'm telling you guys now.
Yeah. What I'm upset about is I didn't see any messages about it until after it happened. That day I don't know what was going on, but deep into work, and then later on I was sitting here at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I saw somebody posted in Slack the video. I'm like, oh crap. So then I went and sat and watched it, and oh my God, that was amazing.
Yeah. It just blows me away.
I want to be clear here that The Simpsons did have an Elon Musk type character a long time ago called Hank Scorpio, who built his own paradise town where all of his engineers lived, and worked out of a volcano and built rockets. And one of his defining attributes was his handheld flamethrower.
I'm telling you, watch for when Elon Musk buys an island with a volcano on it. Then we know he's going complete villain on us.
Well, I 100% guarantee you he already has an island. I mean, that's
a volcano, though. I mean,
islands are formed by volcanoes, so I would go even further and say yes, he has an island volcano.
Well, then he may actually be a super villain.
You guys are a little crazy. Have I said that before?
November 23rd, 2016, Elon Musk's nearly 100% solar island is a test run for the U.S. Oh yeah, and don't forget that he's rebuilding Puerto Rico's power grid, and
somebody needs to.
He upgraded Australia's power grid in 100 days, under 100 days.
Yeah, hey, he's a cool cat. I mean,
he's cool, but he is a villain. Like, if a super villain were to be a real life thing and not just a comic book thing, he is a super villain. He's
one laser beam away from him.
How much interaction do you think he has with the whole SpaceX program, though? Because you got to think there's 6,000+ people working there. Whose idea was it really to put the Roadster into space? Was it his or
the Roadster? Absolutely.
You think?
Oh yeah. There's no such thing like stroking a billionaire's ego by launching his custom-made fastest production car ever into space on his world's largest rocket ever produced, and then landing the components that launched it back down on the ground vertically.
I agree, but still, do you think he has that much involvement in the whole program where he was like, "Hey, let's do this," or did they come up with the idea and he signed off on it?
I think he's an
Right.
executive producer.
So he didn't
it's
really do anything.
It's impossible to tell where his influence ends and someone else starts because he's the one who gets credit. He's the Dick Wolf of the space industry.
There's so many smart people on that.
And you know what
Amazing
they
job,
use?
crew.
You know what they use to launch their systems? Linux.
Of course.
I did not know that. Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, they're running Linux kernels on all their stuff.
All
I
right.
think you'd almost
Is
have
PHP
to.
involved with any of that?
Of course. Ran everything.
Sure.
The interface where they hit the button to launch. It was a
They just,
that was a PHP script.
Yeah. A little view front end to it that made the button.
Yeah.
One of those Ajax wait timers that just spins for a little bit.
Right. Yeah. This is all verified news too.
Absolutely, as Thomas would say, absolutely. I can guarantee it.
100%. Saw it
100%.
myself. Did you guys see the video of the two rockets landing simultaneously?
Oh, I have it as a desktop now. That
It
thing
is
gorgeous.
It is unbelievable. And I know I've said this before on the podcast, but it's still crazy to me that up until 1970, when we envisioned rocket ships landing on another planet, they landed vertically, Buck Rogers style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the shuttle program came around, and everyone's thinking, "Oh yeah, that's incredibly impractical. There's no way we would land a rocket like that vertically. That's just dumb." And then the shuttle program expires. We stop going to space. Elon Musk comes along, and he starts landing rockets vertically, like in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. And everyone's just like, "Oh yeah, that's how you land rockets now." Don't you remember the sci-fi books?
Here I am. I can't even resolve time zone issues in my code, and this freaking guy is landing rockets. You know how pissed off that makes me feel? Yeah,
well, just wait till we've got people on Mars. Now you've got another time zone issue on your hands there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
That's not that far away.
Yeah, but it's a different planet. What?
I swear to God, I'm cursed. I'm cursed. I swear to God, I'm cursed. It's just my life.
You need better internet. For sure.
Me?
No, Eric.
I've got the best internet here.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
He has us all beat.
Yeah. Maybe that's the problem. I'm so far ahead of you guys. It's I don't know.
It's trying to buffer 3 seconds in the future. That's how far ahead of us he is.
Thomas, how's your Mongo experience going? Your MongoDB. I'm curious about this.
It's fascinating. From my research, I came to the conclusion that an implemented MySQL schema is not worse than an implemented MongoDB schema. So if you have the schema up and running, then it's essentially not worth the time to start refactoring and getting everything into a different format. There are a lot of pros and cons on both sides of the fence, NoSQL versus SQL, but the end result is, as with most things PHP, whatever ends up working for you is the best choice. And I was reading an article about SQL versus NoSQL and what the big advantages and disadvantages were. And one of the arguments that gets shot down pretty quickly is it's faster or it's better for big amounts of data. And the answer to that is no, you're not using that much data. You don't have 10 billion records. You're not doing Google level transaction rates. So shut up about it. Now, given that, I really like the schema for MongoDB. I really, really like it.
When you say schema for MongoDB, what do you mean? Because it's
supposed to be schemaless.
It's not schema. No, not schemaless. It's just not a normalized database in the same way that SQL is. But there definitely are schema objects, and there are implementations that resemble schemas for the normal MySQL, MySQL or Postgres user. So, but one of the interesting things I read is that if you're using an abstraction layer such as what we use in Laravel, boy, wow, brain fart.
Eloquent, you mean?
Eloquent. Yeah, Eloquent.
Yeah, I'm trying to bounce between muting and sneezing here. Sorry about that.
You're managing quite well, actually. In Eloquent, we've got has many, belongs to many, many to many relationships. And in SQL, those relationships are undefined. Now, you have a pivot table for many to many, and you have a relationship table for one to many, but it's not a
foreign key, right?
Right. You have these foreign key translation tables. In MongoDB, you have in MongoDB you have embedded data, which is a has many. So a person can have many phone numbers, but a phone number can't have many people.
Right.
And that would be data that uses embedded elements, so you're just extending the record further.
Right.
Versus references. A reference is a many-to-many relationship where you're pointing at the ID of another object, and you have to fetch that object from a different query.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we are hitting on what some consider to be one of the benefits with things like these SQLless, these NoSQL solutions like Mongo, which is everything is a document. So I mean, it's literally, if you think about it, it's like a filing cabinet with paper in it. Every record is whatever's on that paper, whatever's in that document, whatever's in that object. So the idea is that it reads quicker. One of the challenges has always been, so that's where the speed comes in, is reading it and being able to read all the data associated with the record, because you're not doing a bunch of queries.
Well, that and that you get an object back. So even after reading, you don't have to build an object out of it. You get an entirely serialized object back. So there's none of the math that you would have done needs to be done again. It's just been done and sitting in the record.
Right. So one of the challenges has always been, and one of the negatives, as I am to understand it, with these solutions, is the data integrity and the writes. Like the writes are slower, and it's they what was the name? What it used to be phrased to me, where it was like eventually or eventual integrity or something like that. Like eventually the data will have integrity, but it won't necessarily have data integrity when it's first written to the database.
Right.
And so I always, again, that's always one of the things that's kind of pointed out to as a negative. But I put in our Trello board, I don't know if you saw this, Thomas. I guess MongoDB, the company, Yeah. They announced that MongoDB 4.0 was going to have ACID. It was going ACID to basically compliance. ACID compliance, which is typically for relational databases.
ACID just assures transactions are numbered and are executed in the order that they occur. So
everything within that transaction happens, otherwise it doesn't get committed, right?
Right. That's the big thing.
That you can have that without being ACID compliant. ACID just assures that the order of operations occurs in the way that it was sent into the system. It's processed the way it was sent in. So it's for monitoring things like financial institutions. When you're transferring money, you can't.
But I'm pretty
slow
sure
a
John
packet
is.
down.
I'm pretty sure John is right. Part of that compliance is validating that the transaction completes fully, that not a partial transaction happens. So, as far as I know, and I could be wrong on this. Matter of fact, I think they even stated in the article. As far as I know, I think MongoDB is the only NoSQL ACID compliant solution. I'm looking at the article again. I don't actually see that, so I could be talking out my ass. But MongoDB is adding support for multiple document transactions, making it the only database to combine the speed and flexibility and power of a document model with ACID data integrity guarantees. So yeah, I grep that to mean the same thing that what I just said, which is they're the only NoSQL solution that's doing this.
But
so it turns out the transaction
article,
piece. The transaction piece is just one part of ACID compliance.
The power of the document model with ACID data integrity guarantees is what it says. Not transaction.
Right. That guarantee is all about signing of each executed statement and assuring that occurs in a timely manner, and then tying that to a transaction as part of its failure state, so that.
Oh, I see what you're reading, John. You're reading the next paragraph. Transactions in MongoDB will feel just like transactions developers are familiar with from relational databases.
No, I was reading the wiki on ACID compliance, and it's the A of ACID, which is the transaction piece.
Okay, all right, yeah. So there'll be a link in the show notes, but the article goes on to read that what I just read. Transactions and MongoDB will feel just like transactions developers are familiar with from relational databases. It will be multi-statements with similar syntax.
Interesting.
What's the name of this? What's the title of this article?
This is a MongoDB drops ACID.
So they're removing ACID compliance from.
That is a stupid title for this.
It's a great title if you're writing a Medium post, but if you're writing this for the official blog for the company,
no, it's a great title if you're releasing a CD.
We work only in mixtapes here. That's a really stupid name for an article, because I was reading this thing and thinking that's completely contradictory to the title. They're dropping support.
Focus on what they're doing here. Yeah, I mean, okay, so their marketing team dropped the ball on titling it, but do we think this is a big thing for MongoDB to do? Do we think it's going to add a lot of integrity to their model, to their solution? I will say, as somebody who's been looking into NoSQL solutions for a very long time, looked a lot into, actually worked for a company that leveraged CouchDB. CouchDB. We looked at leveraging it on a client of ours. I got heavy into Rethink DB, which I still think is a fantastic solution. But as somebody who's kind of been following this industry, Mongo has been the one that, at least from a commercial perspective, is starting to forge the way for NoSQL solutions. So do we think this is going to add to their market value and get more people on board with using NoSQL solutions if they think, and is there a benefit if you're using the tool the same way you would use a relational database? Do we still think there's a benefit to it being just a document store?
I think yeah. The whole transaction piece is interesting in the fact that you're not necessarily using Mongo as a transactional database. You're just using it to make sure you can write 2, 3, 4 different documents and they all are successful. And if one fails, they all fail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't use transactions in my SQL unless I'm doing something very touchy. But most of my use cases are non-transactional, and I think this just adds a functionality to Mongo that was missing, and there's a market for that functionality. But for people who are already using it, this is just a sort of cherry on top. It doesn't really have a significant impact on us.
See, I started using transactions a hell of a lot more lately. I remember it being a big thing when I was in college, and I just didn't understand it completely. It wasn't
So,
on my radar.
so can you take a moment? Let's take a moment and explain what a transaction is in a relational database. Can you do that?
So from MySQL, you basically when you start a series of queries, you say, I'm going to start a transaction. You do all your queries, and then you either commit it or you roll it back. So I use it in a few different ways. I know there's a lot of people that say don't use the database in testing. I'm sorry, I have unit tests that use the database. So I'll start a transaction, create a bunch of data, verify that my code works, and then do a rollback. So that's one
Yeah, I
nice
do that too.
aspect
I
of
definitely
it.
do that.
Yeah, so that's a nice aspect. Create data, but it doesn't persist past my unit tests. The other nice part of it is for row level locking, you have to start a transaction to lock your InnoDB rows, right? So I can start a transaction, query for data, and in that say for update. Now I'm the only one that can have access to that record until I release that transaction. So lots of good use cases.
That transactions are the easy way to lock rows, but you can just call out a lock on a row if you want to.
You sure?
Okay, but we're talking about transactions.
Yeah.
But we're talking about transactions here.
I know.
Well, maybe later. The only way I know to lock a row is through a transaction. I remember in college, I just didn't quite understand it. I knew it was talked about and it was the thing to do. I just wasn't understanding why, because I'm so used to the quick, I query, I either select something or I write something. I never did things in series where I cared if the entire like 3 or 4 or more queries were successful or not.
The best example that I have is if you have my ATM card and my wife's ATM card, and we want to withdraw the remaining funds from our bank account at the same time, then a transaction simply makes sure that that can never occur.
Right, but I mean that's outside of the realm of realism for most developers. I'm working on a web page. There's been very few cases in the past where I needed a transaction to make sure things didn't happen. Whether that was right or wrong, I probably could have used them, but I did not.
I have transactions for incrementing page clicks, or generating certain reports are done transactionally. And also you have to remember that doing a transaction doesn't write to the index on the table until the transaction is closed. So if you have something that's doing a lot of writing to a highly indexed column, then doing it in a transaction will speed it up immensely, just absolutely huge amounts. So you can execute 1,000 queries that update records, and then once you end the transaction, that whole column is reindexed in one swipe instead of 1,000 swipes.
Yeah, so I do that when I'm doing a batch update. It's start a transaction, do a bunch of updates, do a commit. But that's one-off things. It's not in a web session or web like single script execution. I just started getting into transactions for that scenario probably within the last couple of years, where I really needed the row level locking was the big driving force. The unit test was another big piece. So,
well, with
that's my level of it.
I think it's safe to say that with my company, I have a factor greater number of hits per second than anything that you guys are on. Would you say that's wrong?
No, it's that's fair.
And so when you're dealing with that environment, knowing that a typo will literally produce 1,000 parse errors sent to Bugsnag in 1 second, then when you're writing some queries, it just strikes you that this might need to be in a transaction. When I got to a company doing this volume, the way I looked at how I was writing my SQL did change, just because the volume is sort of always in the back of your head and you're thinking, could this be a race condition? Could this be a blocking issue if users are hammering F5, or if our traffic doubled, which is a feasible thing to happen, then we could be looking at 10,000 hits in a minute or something. And you have to process that when you're looking at some of the data, like click counting and rating a user.
But how does that help you within a single transaction? Like I hit your web page. Are you putting that into a job and then letting the job figure that out? Start a transaction and process 4 or 5, 1,000 jobs at a time?
One of the features we have on my system is that you can rate people, we'll say, give them between 1 and 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
And in that system, we write a record to a rating table, overwriting any previous record for that user, for that person. And then we recalculate the new rating for the user, and we write that to a column on their profile. So it is a 3-query process where we write, and then we read, calculate, and then write the results of the calculation. And because our traffic is high enough, the results of that calculation could be wrong if we were not doing it as a transaction. And I don't know why they care about the accuracy of 500 people giving somebody a 1 through 5 star rating. I've brought it up before, but they want it to be accurate to the decimal. And so I have to write it as a transaction, because you can easily have in my system 500 people at once rating the same person.
Mm-hmm.
Very easily. And when you have that 500 people, 3 queries, that's 1,500 queries executing simultaneously, you want to make sure that they stack correctly so that your number is sane.
We're on a completely separate topic. Since you're talking about number of queries, I would love to know how many queries you're doing per second. I don't know if you know that off.
It's not too bad. Our system is mostly a read-only system. So you're basically, how many queries do you have against a newspaper? Well, once you've printed it, then you cache it and then print based off the cache. So we have a very low query count, generally speaking. But then you get into our search system, and our search system pumps queries out by the hundreds of thousands.
Okay, one of our clients just recently figured out what theirs was, because we're trying to do a lot of optimization, and the code is just bad. It's asking the database the same question numerous times, so caching needs to be implemented. And they're doing, I think, 11,000 queries a second.
Mm. Yeah, we're not doing that.
And we use Percona a lot for debugging and just general advice, and they're like, yeah, that's way too high. You need to figure that out.
Need some optimization there, buddy.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at my API calls.
Okay, are we going to keep talking about this? Or
no, go ahead, Eric.
No, I'm sorry. Go on.
I did something recently. I think John did it as well, and I've got to say, I'm noticing more of a difference than I thought I would with this. But
it's a colonoscopy.
Recently, John and I not John. Well, John and I guess we have a weekly meetup that a weekly co-working day that people are welcome to come and work with us. Anybody from our user group is invited. Anybody from the development environment in San Diego is invited. We get people show up from time to time, but for the large majority of the group are Diego dev people, because it's kind of also our opportunity to all get together and work physically together. And one of the developers was showing the whole changing the amber color of your screen as night came and as it got darker. And
Flux.
I know, yeah, Flux. I know my wife had been using it on her Kindle for a while. And I was always looking at it thinking, man, that seems really distracting to me. Like, how do you look at it? And she would even say, well, actually, when you're reading, you don't even really notice it. And it's not until you kind of step back and look that you even realize it. Based on this developer's kind of advice, I went into the settings on the Apple systems that I have, and I enabled it, and essentially just said, hey, at sunset, change the color of the monitor so it's easier on the eyes. And I've got to say, it's making a difference. It's definitely, like, I just realized that it had happened to my monitor. My monitor's in here, but had I not kind of consciously looked at it, the colors didn't seem faded at all when I wasn't paying attention. Of course, now that's
told us
all
about
I see.
Flux years ago, because I've been using it on my laptop, and I guess now it's a standard part of OS X called Night Shift. Yeah. So I recently turned it on my desktop because I just never bothered installing Flux on here. And again,
so Flux was a standalone app, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I think that's what our guys were telling us as well. So,
yeah, he was using that. Now he's tried Night Shift, and I think he's using that now.
Yeah.
Well, the research on blue light, which is the light that Flux is blocking for nighttime use, has been very negative. They're showing that blue light from monitors and phones can just destroy your sleeping patterns, your mental state. A lot of stuff like seasonal affective disorder is affected really negatively by blue light from monitors. And I think I brought up Flux a couple of years ago because I have a hardware solution. And I was told that my hardware solution was dumb and expensive because it was $70. But I have these beautiful Gunnar blue blockers, these compute glasses, and they are fashionable.
Blue blockers. That was a big infomercial back in the day.
Well, they've got it's called blue blockers, right? That's what they're called, blue blockers.
Yeah. Blue blockers. Yep.
So these are much higher end than the blue blockers, but it is actually a big concern lately for a lot of ergonomics experts and office space experts that the blue light spectrum is starting to cause some serious problems in mental health with people.
Not fake news. It's all fake news. World's flat. I almost turned into one of these conspiracy theorists when I saw that Tesla in space. I'm like, that's not real. That's fake. Look at that thing. That's fake. It's not really flying around the Earth. That's a fake. That's just a commercial.
It is a little too convenient.
And it's so clear. I mean, like the YouTube channel that was streaming it live, I'm sure it's still there. It's like properly lit in like such high definition. Like, that's not real. That's fake.
The fact that it's supposed to get out to the same orbit as Mars is amazing.
Well, yeah, because they shot it around the sun, like you do.
But it's going to come back to the Earth orbit and then back to Mars. I mean,
No,
not
they
Earth
shot it
orbit,
around
but-
the sun into a Mars orbit.
No, it's gonna the path it's gonna take is at its apogee, it'll be on the Mars orbit line, and then when it comes back around to the other side, it's gonna be on the Earth orbit line.
Called the Peregrine.
Whatever. Shut up.
Still,
Clearly, you've
still,
never played Kerbal Space Program.
I can't remember if it's needle haystack or a haystack needle. These guys are sitting cars around planets. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating to me.
Now, this is interesting though, because a lot of the older tech pioneers are very upset about this. Have you heard of anybody being upset about it being a Tesla?
No.
No. We circled back around to this story. I'm sorry, that's my fault.
There
Yeah,
is a very famous picture and quote from our dear Carl Sagan that says, "Do not forget, no billboards in space." And there are people who are concerned that this sets a precedence for marketing by launching junk into space. And I'm inclined to agree with them, even though it's super cool.
The guy has spent billions of dollars on a space program that nobody else is willing to fund.
But wouldn't it be
you
better
know-
if it was just a giant sign that said, "This is a metaphor for my penis"?
Yeah, I think you're going negative with this. I don't see
don't
what
do
you're
that.
saying, and but I don't know. I thought it was cute. I thought some of the Easter eggs they put in it, like on the circuit boards where it says "Made on Earth by Humans" and things like that, were cute. I mean, we've sent other things in space. We've sent music into space, and you know, if it becomes a problem, you know, if Mark from Facebook launches a big Facebook sign into orbit, we can talk about it. But this guy paid for the rocket, did the science on the rocket, shot the rocket up into the air. It wasn't cheap. Yeah, there was scientific significance behind what he was doing as far as heavy cargo. So what else was he using on launch up there? Dumpster? Get the guy some slack.
Well, I wouldn't go
All right,
so
I'm
far as to say
moving
it's
on.
cheap.
And I don't think I don't think you're advertising Tesla to aliens. I mean,
No, it's advertising it to us.
well,
Yeah,
It's
you're
an
advertising
unreleased.
by it being
the whole
his
SpaceX
program.
program was a fancy marketing tool that they decided to implement over at Tesla. That was the whole motivation behind SpaceX
Yeah.
from the beginning.
The man's a genius, a
All
marketing
right, I want to
genius
ask
as
another
well.
question. I really want to get you guys off this
Go on.
topic because let me ask a question because this is a question I ask myself all the time. What resources do you guys use to stay current with our industry? Like your development practices or, standards, or do you guys have like, a locate something you go to, something you use that to kind of help you with your skill set, to help you stay current with stuff? I get asked this a lot. How do I, with so much information out there, how do I manage to stay plugged in and kind of up to speed on a lot of things that are going on? I'm
I
curious
go to Wave PHP.
what yours is.
Wave PHP does it for me every time.
Every year, it hasn't failed you yet, huh?
It has not failed
Every
me
year.
yet.
Good answer.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Wave PHP.
Meetups and conferences. I mean, that's the big one right there.
Okay.
And then from
Conferences?
the conferences specifically and the meetups, you're gonna learn of the people in the community that tweet a lot. Follow them on Twitter and learn from things they're saying.
Okay. Good answer all around. Thomas?
Well, I feel like an old man because I have an RSS reader.
You stole my thunder, man.
Yeah. So I subscribe to a lot of different bloggers, tweets. The vitriol coming out of Twitter right now, just the people that you respect fighting amongst each other and losing respect for people. It's such an annoyance to me. I try to stay away from tech on Twitter, but I do subscribe to certain publishers on Medium. People like Grumpy Programmer. I have his blog subscribed. Rasmus Lerdorf. He has his Rasmus's Toys blog.
So you sound like me. You still depend pretty heavily on a curated list of resources, blogs, what have you, that you consume through RSS feeds, huh?
Yeah, and I continually prune it and manage it. People get stale, creators. There are creators out there who are not bloggers, and they will write something inspiring and amazing, and you add their blog and continue along with it for a little bit. But then it turns out that that's just the best thing they've ever done, and now they're back to work with their normal day job. So you do have to manage it a little bit. And I also have a timeout system where if something sounds interesting, I middle click it with my mouse and leave it as a tab on my browser. And if I come back to it and read it within a day or two, then I've taken it in. But if I keep seeing it and saying, nah, later and later, then after a couple days, I'll make sure it just gets dropped off the map. And interest in other technologies, interest in cryptocurrency, interest in JavaScript, React, Vue. I've been looking a lot at Node lately, and Rust, Golang, things like that. It's just, I was reading a post on Reddit today about PHP, what PHP brings to the table that's special, that's unique, that is better than all the other languages. And the end result of hundreds of comments was, at this point, nothing. All of these languages are fairly mature at this point. They all bring different strengths and weaknesses. If PHP is your language, you use PHP. If it's not your language, or if you have a different idea for this thing, then you just use the different thing. You don't fret about it. Its big strength is that it has this large embedded population that uses it. But that's starting to shift as well with languages like Node and theoretically ASP, but it's dead. And so when I look at tutorials for Rust and they're showing me something completely new and amazing, then I think, how does this apply to PHP, my daily working job? That's how I advance my PHP abilities, is by learning something other than PHP at this point. How does PHP deal with this problem that I never thought was a problem? Or why is this a blocker? And Reddit provides a lot of stuff for me too. There is a somewhat of an active PHP community on Reddit, usually just defending themselves being made fun of by other language subreddits. But I did see, one of the things I saw this week was True to Win. Return True to Win, which is a short PHP game that takes sort of the worst behaviors of PHP and asks you to figure out what the hell's happening. And my favorite one, the simplest one that I've seen on this site, I think is number 4. Nope. So it's a simple question. It says strlen of x equals integer 4. So what do you have to pass in to string length to return the number 4?
That's funny. That's the last one I saw before I stopped playing it.
That's an easy one, right? Because you just 1, 2, 3, 4, and that returns the number 4 because there's 4 characters. So it returns the number 4. It counts the characters and returns it. But one of the features of the site is that it says your best score. So if you type in 4 characters, your best score is 4. The absolute best score possible is 1 character to return the number 4 from string length.
Really?
Yes. It's amazing. If you pull up...
Listen, I'm going to post something in Slack. You guys tell me if you've seen this or not, and if we should even bother talking about it, but I think it's pretty classic. Have you guys read that,
yes.
that story about the naked PHP developers?
Yes. Well, let me finish this real quick. So if you paste the eggplant emoji into string length in PHP, it will return the number 4. Because when you dig into the PHP documentation, it turns out that string length doesn't count characters. It is a Unicode. It is a byte counter. So if you have a Unicode character that is 4 bytes in length, but it's only 1 character, then it will return saying it's got 4 characters.
Fascinating.
So that's the kind of stuff that's in this website. It's returntrue.win, and it's absolutely funny and tragic at the same time. But there are some, when you see what these shortest possible answers are in some of these cases, you just won't believe that that's what it is.
When I tried, I got an error. Use of undefined constant.
Was it an error or a notice?
Notice.
So a notice, it will just steamroll over.
I had to put quotes around it. Put quotes around it, you're good to go.
Should be able to just submit the Unicode. So yeah, if you just paste the Unicode, it will still return true. So it'll still return the number 4, but it will also throw a notice about an undefined constant.
Also, there's a difference between single quotes and double quotes. Single quotes works perfectly. Double quotes gives you a parse error.
Double quotes are also much, much slower in PHP.
Yeah.
Like half the speed.
Anyway.
All right, Eric. I'm done bashing on PHP on our PHP podcast.
So did you guys, John, did you see this article about the naked PHP developers?
I did not.
Or warriors, naked PHP warriors. I'm going to give you the cliff notes of it. We'll post the whole article to the show. But it was a great article about a guy trying to explain the difference between kind of PHP developers and how they're viewed in the world by other groups. I think the ones he points out here are Ruby and it might have been Python, might have been the other one. But basically, I don't know. I don't want to give away too much of the story, but essentially what it talks about is how he does it in the context of warriors, of like ancient warriors, and how the PHP warriors, they learn life by wrestling and fighting, and they're naked and they wrestle and fight. And it's not until much later in life, like after wrestling around naked for 5-6 years, do they start to use tools that make them better warriors. So eventually the PHP warrior gets the shield, gets the sword, and they become true warriors. Whereas these other platforms, they start their developers off with these tools, these warrior tools. And so, the kind of scenario it runs through is, all these factions all go to war, and the PHP warriors are actually off on the hill kind of surveying the battlefield trying to figure out where they want to go, while the Ruby warriors are down in battle, and they see these naked PHP warriors come running out and think that that's representative of all PHP developers. It's just a good read. I mean, I appreciated it. I got what they were saying. I thought he put a pretty funny spin on it, but it's very true. It's our platform, probably more than any other platform, is just littered with people learning how to do it, and people self-teaching, and people learning bad habits, and not necessarily going through the grind of being a full-time developer who has a reason to get better. And PHP is
I can't tell you the number of times I've been at a bar and somebody says, "Oh, I'm a PHP developer too," because I've got my SD PHP shirt on all the time. They say, "Oh, I'm a PHP developer too." And I say, "Yeah, what do you work with?" And they say, "WordPress."
Yeah.
No, I mean,
that's common. Yeah.
Yeah, you use PHP, but you're not a PHP developer at that point. You're a user.
Yeah, I mean, let's say develop WordPress, but normally that's what they would say. But yeah, I think we all have had to put up with the harassing from our friends and colleagues of other platforms, and had to defend PHP and our choices to develop in PHP to some level, to a manager or something. So I'm used to this, and I just thought this did a really good job at kind of capturing the reality of it. It's like, a good developer is a good developer. A bad developer is a bad developer. Whether they code PHP or code in another language, there's good developers, bad developers everywhere. But I thought it was fun. If you haven't read this, John, give it a read. I think you'll appreciate it.
Yeah, I was looking over it as you were talking about it.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, and I think the key to PHP, if you're in that situation where you feel like you have to defend it, is to know what the arguments are and know what the defenses against it are, because there are so many references to PHP 4 as to why PHP is bad, and that's just obnoxious.
We're so far past that at this point,
right?
It's funny. I can't remember what his Twitter handle is. Do you remember what the Twitter handle is for Anthony, for the big security guy in PHP? Anthony
IRC Maxo.
All right, that's him. IRC Max.
Anthony Ferreira.
Yeah.
He just posted. I don't know the story behind it all. I just saw him come by in a tweet that he just got PHP shamed. I thought it was him. Maybe it wasn't him. I don't see the tweet now. Somebody posted about
it was him. He said, I got PHP shamed today at a cross-discipline meetup for an industry popular community of developers focused on knowledge sharing. It's been a long time since I've been shamed like that, and it really makes me appreciate the PHP community more. We're not perfect, but we're here.
Yeah.
I think we're better than a lot of communities. Hell, we've got Wave PHP. What do
they have? That's right, man. That's right. Wave PHP. I tell you, I was shocked. We've talked about Jeffrey Way in the past. He's big in the Laravel community. Probably the hands down leader of teaching Laravel. He has Laracast website. Really well respected as far especially in the Laravel community. He has a podcast he does called Laravel Snippets.
Laravel Snippets.
I don't know why he calls it Laravel Snippets, because it's not Laravel specific.
5 minutes.
Yeah, but it's not specific to Laravel. I don't know why he calls it Laravel, because it's just him kind of talking about whatever is on his mind, which I think is great. It's a great talk. But I realized that I have a lot of opposing viewpoints with Jeffrey Way, and I've known this for some time. So the first time it became obvious with me was we were at one of the Laracons, and holy crap, I'm blanking on his name. New friend of the show called us out about the kids. Who was
Ted
that?
Nugent.
No, not Ted Nugent.
Matt.
No, not Matt. Big deal. Holy crap! I can't believe I can't remember his name.
Matt
now.
Lance.
No, not Matt Lance. I said he was a big deal. God
Ben
damn it.
Hall.
No, come on. You like
Just
this
looking
guy,
at
Paul.
everyone who's added us.
Not Paul Allen. God bless America.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Paul Schaefer. The Paul
Jones?
Schaefer, everybody.
Paul M. Jones.
Paul Jones. Good God, I'm a fan of the guy, and I can't remember his freaking name. Anyways, I thought Paul at Laracon one year, I forget what year it was. It was in Louisville one of the times. Did a great talk, and I mean to summarize a lot of it, at the end of the talk, he was kind of hinting around the fact of there's a lot of new people learning PHP, and that's great. Frameworks like Laravel really spikes that interest, but that there are people who have been doing this for a very long time, and there are certain battle scars we have and certain things we've learned, and there are things that we're implementing to help kind of guide the new people that are learning. And he was referring to the fact that there's PSRs now, and a lot of this was coming from experience. And I'm like, yeah, that's a very, very reasonable statement to make. And he was actually the person to make it, because he's, kind of been on that forefront. He's one of the people who spearheaded PSRs. And so I thought, I was appreciating what he was saying. And Jeffrey Way kind of started to challenge him on it. Like, yeah, but is it really that important? I mean, isn't it more important that people just start doing? And that's always Jeffrey Way's thing, is just start doing.
I remember this conversation.
The thing Paul kept trying to say is, well, yes, we want to make sure you do it. You just start doing, but isn't it better if you just start doing it right? Like, learn from other people's mistakes. And so I remember thinking to myself, first thing, I thought it was kind of, I don't know, I thought it was aggressive for Jeffrey Way, because Jeffrey Way, he wouldn't let it go. I mean, he kept challenging Paul on these points. And it went on for a while. And I remember thinking to myself, he really kind of needs let this go, because he made a very good point. He's the presenter. He's the one up there. Let him have the last word and just let it be. So I realized at that point, it's like, I don't really see eye to eye on all the philosophies of Jeffrey Way. And then I was listening to his latest Laravel snippet, and I've been called out about this in the past when I talked about, I was on a podcast, and not this one, but one that actually matters. And somebody asked, what we look for in a developer when we bring people on. And I'm like, I look for people who are passionate about the industry. And I was called out a little bit on it, because they had interpreted of people who code all the time, like 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day on the weekends. And what they said is, well, I like to have people who go outside, who enjoy their family, who go outside. I'm like, well, I'm not saying not that, but we look for people who, if they're not coding, they're engaged on some level. They're engaged with their community. They're engaged with, some aspect. Like, it's not just their job. They don't just do it to get paid. And when they're not getting paid, they're not doing it. They just have this kind of desire to continue to learn. And, I brought up meetups, obviously, because meetups are a big deal for myself. I think they're a big deal for John as well. And we see them as a pretty big part of the PHP community. People benefit from meetups, but I don't think the people who benefit from meetups realize how much other people benefit from their involvement. And it's always like these little conversations that happen at a meetup, these casual conversations that people will just, grab all this information that it's just that community aspect of it. And I always thought that was good. I never require, we don't require our Diego Dev people to go to meetups. And we joke around a little bit, but we don't
technically require them.
We don't shame them if they don't go. The only person I probably shame for not going to the meetups would be John. John's probably missed more meetups than anybody else in Diego Dev. But that's a whole nother topic.
But I get a pass. I had kids, for crying out loud.
This latest Laravel snippet, Jeffrey Way's kind of pooing away. He's like, hey, you don't need to go to meetups. You don't need to. It's not that important. It's like if meetups aren't your thing, then don't do them. If you don't want to do anything after you code, don't do anything after you code. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's not helpful for building communities and keeping things strong by any means. And I think he's well intended. I think what I try to take away from it is that it doesn't have to be your life. It's not an all or nothing. If you're a PHP developer, it's not your entire existence or nothing, that you can do other things. But just the way he words things sometimes, just don't encourage people not to go to meetups. If you want to say you don't attend meetups or you don't find them that important, that's fine. But don't, especially somebody I think the biggest thing is he's so influential. There's a good amount of people in the Laravel community, especially, who, if Jeffrey Way says to do something, they do it.
Well, and rightfully so, because he is incredibly smart, and I think what he deals with is the opposite of what we call imposter syndrome. I think he is very assured of his intelligence, and when he sees something and likes it, then it becomes the way to do it. And he starts telling the following masses that this is how you do it now, because I saw it and this is how you do it. And I think that's how Vue took off in the Laravel community, because he did a series on Vue and it just became the de facto way of doing it. I think with him and Taylor, there's definitely an echo chamber going on where the old guard has a lot to say about being cautious and over exaggerating accomplishments, and they take it very personally. I mean, we talked about Anthony Ferreira earlier. Anthony Ferreira is blocked by Taylor because of a conflict they had over testing methodologies. So somebody that we consider one of the great experts in the PHP community is just banned from Taylor's chain of thought. And that echo chamber is one of the things I think is really hurting Laravel right now, is that the new idea gets put in their head, implemented on the system, pushed out to production, and there aren't a lot of checks and balances because they don't like the old guard. They don't like the people who've been doing this for 30 years or 20 years.
I don't agree with everything you said. Mainly, Jeffrey Way will be one of the first ones to call himself out for saying, oh yeah, remember last year how I told you this was the best way? Well, I didn't really know what I was talking about now. And this is why you should never listen to anybody that tells you what the best way is. And I'm kind of like, but I think you're right on with the whole old guard thing and disagreeing with the old guard. But in where I can appreciate what he's saying as far as, oh yeah, remember how this was the best way to do it? Well, no, it's not. And that's why you should never follow what the best way is. Just do what feels right. I'm like, no. That was the standard because that's what everybody agreed was the standard. And it was the best way at that time to do it. You didn't have to do it that way, but it made sense. And if you wanted to be more compatible down the line, yes, standards change. Yes, they're forever morphing. It's not the commandments; they're not etched in stone. They're constantly changing and modifying because they're getting better, because we're getting better as developers. So don't poo them off. Don't say that they're not worth following, or you shouldn't worry yourself about it. You should, especially if you want to be a good PHP developer. You very much should worry yourself about it. You should at least be current with what they are. Even if you choose not to follow them, have a good reason not to follow them, but know what they are.
Well, and I think that that's the catch-22 of being as intelligent as Jeffrey Way is that your gut reaction is right more often than not. So when you say something, when you make a proclamation to the masses, this is how you do things, and then everyone just starts cheering and saying, this is amazing, then your next thought to yourself is, hey, go with your gut because it's never wrong. There's plenty of people out there whose gut instinct is by default wrong, not right. And those are the people that you have to teach to. You have to teach to the people that aren't as smart as you. And that's I think that's where he misses. But that's where I think the Laracast snippet is important to listen to, because he does address that concern. Mm-hmm. He does say, I know how I feel about this, and I'm constantly conflicted about how it is presented to other people. And it's important to understand where he's writing his sort of guides from, because he has to write in a definitive manner. He has to say, when you're doing something, this is how you do it, because he's teaching, he's giving instruction. But the Laracast snippet is an insight into what the teacher is thinking when he's saying in an absolute tone, this is how you do it. He's also thinking to himself, but maybe it isn't. I still want to keep learning.
Yeah. I know, as somebody who feels very passionate about community and who's put a lot of work in helping build communities, including a community specifically for Laravel, yeah, I just feel like it's, I'm to have key people in the community kind of, and I have called other people out in the Laravel community about not putting enough emphasis on community. So we've gone down this path before. I guess I'm doing it again with
this
Jeffrey
is an
Way,
old hat for us.
But when you get somebody like that who you're not only are you not acknowledging it, but you're kind of flipping the script and saying, yeah, no, don't worry about it. For people like me, it's like, well, fuck. Okay, then fuck you.
I think that's the root of a lot of our gripes about the Laravel community and the Laravel leaders, is that they are not, in many instances, acting like leaders. There are a lot of instances of pettiness that you want to...
I swear to God, the Laravel community is one of the strongest communities in PHP, and I think it's in spite of the leaders of the platform. Not in spite, but not, it amazes me that there's such a strong bond in the Laravel community within PHP. I don't know. I don't know how to word that. I don't think there's a lot of support for it, but it continues to grow, and I think that's good. I mean, there are people out there. I mean, there are people out there who do Laravel specific podcasts and who, people not like myself anymore, but other people who run, Laravel specific meetups and run Slack channels, specific to Laravel. And yeah, there are a lot of people out there doing a lot of hard work to make the community grow. And yeah, it just, I don't think it's a good thing that, and there was no reason for Jeffrey Wade to do that. I appreciate the fact that he has that podcast, and I appreciate the fact that he's very unfiltered and, just like you said, saying what's on his mind, talking his true feelings. But to hear that, it's just kind of like, oh, God damn it. Okay. Well, there's no reason to subscribe to Laracast.com either, I guess, because, why subscribe to things like that when you can get them on YouTube for free? Yeah,
See,
it's
that's don't say Laracast and PHP Ugly is that Laracast is very definitive, and on PHP Ugly we just say to each other, I don't know if that's the right way to deal with things. I don't know. Maybe do it that way, maybe don't. I don't know. Don't yell at me on Twitter again.
don't block me, please. I don't know.
Can you check if you're blocked?
I
I'm
don't.
sure those are.
Are you talking about from Taylor?
Yeah, I wonder.
Actually, the last time I checked, he started following me again so that he could IM me. So let me see if he's still following me.
All right, while you do that, guys, we're at an hour and a half already.
An hour and a half. All right, halfway through the podcast, guys. Time for crypto talk. We're going to save it for next week.
Yes. I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right, guys. Well, I think this
long enough.
I think this has been a fantastic episode. Episode 95, PHP Ugly. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Tom Rideout.
I'm Eric Van Johnson.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
You know the part of the podcast that gets edited the most?
The
last 15 seconds.